Hello good people of YouTube, Mountbatten here, and today I'm going to explain to you guys how I would fix the new US BBs. So for those that don't know, there is an upcoming line split to the US Battleship line starting at Tier 8. And basically it is a continuation of the Colorado design. So a Super Dreadnought line from the Colorado all the way up through Tier 10, stopping with the Vermont. I'll throw a couple of pictures up on screen. I'm sure most of you have heard about these ships. And I'm not going to go through the stats that these ships have right now. If you want to see that, go check out my video from back in the day when this split was first announced. It's just called USBB Splits on the Way or something like that, I do believe. And it's they're interesting to say the least. They have been changed a little bit since that announcement. The Sigma's been increased. I think the dispersion's been slightly decreased, but some highlights of this line that really don't make it that appealing is, first off, these ships are stuck at a 23 knot top speed. So I'm talking about from Tier 10 down to Tier 8. All these ships have a 23 knot top speed, even the Tier 10. So it's going to be utterly useless by Tier 10 standards just on the speed alone. Now granted, they do have pretty good range for their tiers, including the Tier 10, the Vermont, but they also have a 40-second reload on their main battery guns. That's pretty dang long. I get they have 12, 18-inch guns, but holy crap, 40 seconds. So even with like the reload module and with the adrenaline rush skill kicking in, you're probably not going to see a sub 35-second reload time, unless I've just done the quick math in my head wrong. But yeah, that's ridiculous in my opinion, even for 18-inch guns, even for 12, 18-inch guns. I know that's a lot of firepower, but holy crap, that's an eternal reload time. Other than that, I mean, they're huge. You should have seen that in the pictures I put up here of them. They're absolutely massive. The Vermont is ridiculously thick. They're massive. They're huge. They are what you would think of the stereotypical, absolute, just bristling with guns battleships. Now, unfortunately, most of the player base, myself including, at least from gauging from my own comment section and from what I've seen around Reddit and the forums and other YouTube comments, agree that these ships are going to be, unless they get severely changed by wargaming, they're either going to be backline snipers that don't really contribute much to the game, besides maybe occasionally dev striking something every now and then if something's silly enough to give you broadside. And then after that, once whatever flank they're on falls, they're just going to get burned down by whatever HE spammers on the enemy team, because these ships literally cannot run from anything with a 23 knot top speed. So I'm going to run you guys through some changes I would make, and these changes are kind of just speaking in general because I didn't want to go through and detail the changes to each individual ship. That would be like a 40-minute video, but this is kind of the style I would push them in if I had the power to change them. So we're going to go through each major component that I would change, and I'll just give you guys a little bit of an explanation on why that change was made and how I would hope it would change the playstyle of these ships. So let's go ahead and get right on to the biggest issue I have with these ships, which is the speed. I would increase the top speed from 23 knots to 25 knots, which means with the speed flag, you could get these ships up to 26 knots, which is still a whole knot and a half slower than the Yami, which is currently the slowest Tier 10 BB. So they aren't gaining an advantage here in the speed. They're just, in my opinion, this just brings them into workable speed at Tier 10. I mean, even at Tier 8, 23 is ridiculously slow. Most Tier 8 ships, actually, yeah, all Tier 8 battleships are pretty darn fast. You know, even with the Japanese line, you are getting to the Amagi, which is a battle cruiser. So that's a very fast ship. The Germans have the Bismarck, Americans have the North Carolina, French have the Richelieu, which is of course incredibly speedy. Russians have the Vladivostok, which isn't a speed demon by any stretch of the imagination, but can still get up there. So yeah, this would basically make it to where you have workable speed now. You aren't going to be winning any races, but it will be enough speed to at least get you in battle in a reasonable time, but also give you a chance to run away if something goes wrong. Now, again, you won't be winning the race to retreat, but at least you won't be stuck at a 23 knot top speed. Now you have a little bit more speed to work with, so you can choose to disengage a little bit later or give you more of a cushion to disengage. But the caveat would be they would have incredibly slow acceleration. If you do look at these battleships, I mean, again, they're humongous. They are truly giant. So they wouldn't have fantastic acceleration, but again, we're not talking about, you know, a snail's pace acceleration. We're talking about a slow acceleration. So they would be on the lower end of acceleration for battleships for their tier, but they would still have the ability to at least get up to 26 knots. Next thing is the armor. With these ships being truly massive, I would want them to have the second best armor scheme in their tier. So basically right behind the Soviets. My reason being is that these ships are huge, they are going to get targeted by everything, and they have a humongous surface area, so just to be fair to them, they need really, really good armor. And they did recently get a buff to their plating. They now have 38mm plating, which cuts back on some of the HE spam, but obviously doesn't offer protection from most HE spammers at whatever tier they are going to be facing. So I would buff the armor a bit more to make it about roughly the second best armor scheme in their tier. And I would also give them about either a 43% torpedo damage reduction starting at tier 8 to the Vermont having a 48% torpedo damage reduction. Again, these are massive ships, easy target for torpedo boats, so you know, this gives you the ability to eat a couple more torpedoes due to your size, but again, it's not going to be really difficult for torpedo boats to get absolutely devastating salvos or in these battleships. So just helping them out a little bit there to help in their survivability. Now, I'm not talking about an armor scheme that makes them completely immune to HE spam, almost like the Soviet armor scheme does. I'm just talking about one that would give them a pretty decent fighting chance with their ship. And the whole kind of theme I'm going for is making this incredibly tanky island that can push up and tank for its team while laying down the occasional hate with its 18-inch guns. So that's the kind of idea we're going for. I probably should tell you that at the start, but just to let you guys know where I'm going with this when we're getting to the armor scheme. Alright, next up, the guns. The guns, in my opinion, since she has 12 18-inch guns, their Sigma should be somewhere around 1.6 to 1.7, so the lower level for their tier, but still 1.6, 1.7 Sigma is pretty darn workable, especially when you have 12 18-inch guns. And again, by no means I'm saying that these are like hardline figures. I'm just saying they should be somewhere around there. So the tier 8 could have 1.6, maybe 1.55 because it is a tier 8. But she does have 12 16-inch guns instead of 12 18-inch guns. You get the 18-inch guns at tier 9. So maybe 1.6 on the tier 8, 1.65 on the tier 7. I'm sorry, on the tier 9, and then 1.7 on the tier 10, the Vermont. And its reload time, I ought to cut that down to 35 seconds, which is still the longest reload time at tier 10. And again, I would give this reload time to the tier 9 as well and the tier 8. So 35-second reload time, that's pretty darn long. You throw the reload module on there, you can get it down to, you know, 32, 33 seconds, but then you having to give up the range module, so you can't really snipe anymore. But if you do take the range module, where you will be able to rain 18-inch shells down on, you know, beyond 23 kilometers, you now have a 35-second reload. So I think it's a fair trade-off there in the balancing department as well. Speaking of range, like I mentioned, I would cap these things at about a 23-kilometer max range. I'm talking no spotter plane either. I do have a section on consumables, but no spotter plane for these ships either. And I would also give them about a 50-second turret traverse, especially on the tier 9 and the tier 10. Tier 8, maybe not, maybe like a 45-second turret traverse. But since the tier 9 and tier 10 do have many 18-inch guns, I would give them a 50-second turret traverse. So a little bit faster than the Yammies, but they don't have the Sigma of the Yammy to make up for that. But they do have more guns. But still, I think that's somewhere in there, 50, 55 seconds. I think that would be a good compromise for the turret traverse. Alright, AA. I think these ships should be absolutely just no-fly zones. These ships are massive, and even the pictures you saw earlier, there's AA absolutely everywhere on these battleships. So I think at first, when the AA is intact for the match, planes should have almost a zero chance of getting through this AA. However, with the ships being absolutely massive, they are naturally going to attract much HE, so that will not last quite obviously. So throughout the battle, the AA will get whittled down, and then CVs will be able to get through if these ships aren't being supported by their team. As far as handling goes, I think these things should have pretty garbage handling because, again, they are absolutely massive ships. They are basically small islands, and I think they should handle like small islands. So I'm talking about humongous turning radiuses in somewhere in the 900 meter area, maybe even 1,000 if you want to give it the Russian treatment, although I wouldn't give it that because these ships aren't as long as ships like the Kremlin and the Slava, but they are certainly girthy enough to where they should have pretty garbage handling in my opinion. I'm not saying, you know, it can't turn at all, just obviously it should have to take plenty of time to turn around. Rudder shift time, roughly that of the Kremlin as well. Alright, secondaries, I think the secondary should have pretty darn good accuracy, about a 4-second base reload time, and a 10.3 kilometer maximum range. So we're talking about with all current secondary captain skills applied and all modules, they should be able to get out to about 10.3 kilometers. We're talking about flags, modules, captain skills, everything. Because these ships really won't have much defense against destroyers, especially with a 50-second turret traverse and being massive targets. So the secondaries can be a bit of DD repellent. Although with only a 10.3 kilometer max range, you are still within plenty range of every single destroyer's guns from tier 8 to tier 10. And again, these numbers can be adjusted by tier, so the tier 8 could maybe only have a 8.9 or a 9.0 kilometer max range, and then the tier 9 and the tier 10 can get that sweet 10 kilometer max range on their secondaries. Again, if you look at the pictures of the ships, they're absolutely bristling with secondary guns. I don't see why they shouldn't be able to make use of these, especially again with a very long turret traverse time and being as slow and as immaneuverable as these ships would be, even in my variation of them. Alright, detection range. I think these things should have absolutely massive detection range. These things, again, are basically small islands. So I'm thinking somewhere in the neighborhood of like 18 kilometer base detection range, or like maybe even 19 kilometers with the Vermont, because there's how huge it is and how tall it is too. So again, massive detection range to where even if you put all of your skills on it, you're still going to have probably a 16 or 17 kilometer detection range. Again, level this by tier. So again, the tier 8 could maybe have a 17 kilometer base detection range. Tier 9, 17.5 kilometer base detection range, and then the tier 10, an 18 kilometer base detection range to again show how massive these ships are. Alright, the heals, I would just give it the improved American heal and the American damage con. If you guys don't know, I think like 2 or 3 patches ago, they gave the American battleships the improved heal that it's not quite the Massachusetts here, but it is a better heal than the original American heal. The Missouri still has the original American heal, however, but again, it's nothing like a Conqueror super heal or anything like that. It's kind of like a Warspite heal if you ever played the Warspite. So I'd give them that, the standard cooldown that comes with that, not the Massachusetts cooldown though, because that would be a little bit too much, and the American damage con that lasts for 25 seconds as it's running, again emphasizing that these ships are supposed to be absolute tanks. As far as consumable goes, I would only give it the fighter consumable, not the spotter plane, with the choice to take Hydro or DFAA, be it Hydro and DFAA is in the same slot, and you can pick between having DFAA or Hydroacoustic Search. Hydroacoustic Search would kind of give you a heads up if a destroyer snuck around to your side and is dumping torpedoes at you, and also would kind of give you a little bit of confidence to push into some close quarters with, again, your big, fat, slow ship. Or you could take DFAA to, again, reinforce that I don't want to be touched by planes. Health, I think they should have roughly the second best health in their tier, For Vermont, for example, I would want it to have around 100k health. Again, give or take 5,000. The tier 9 would maybe only have 90k, and then the tier 8 would maybe only have like 80, 83k-ish. Again, emphasizing that these ships are getting bigger and more well armored over time as they're being developed. Again, health is supposed to reflect overall tonnage, and again, these ships are absolutely friggin' massive, so they should have a pretty healthy amount of hit points. So again, my overall concept for these ships would be pushing them from a sniper role to more of a mid-range tank. They're slow, they're huge, but they can absolutely take an incredible amount of damage. But they're not fast enough to where they can just bum rush your team, get in your face, and start laying down hate from point blank range. With a 26 knot top speed, that still gives enemy ships plenty of time to get out of the way, and with, well, garbage maneuvering like I would want to give it, it also means you can't, dance all around the enemy team, be very maneuverable, and angle to every single shot. You're going to take the damage. But with the decent secondaries, with the 35-second reload time, and with the American damage con and improved heal, it gives you the confidence to where you can push into a mid-range engagement or push for your team and tank for your team, where when you're working together you can have a very effective push. But also with garbage maneuverability, with the absolutely just giant size of these ships, with the massive detection range, if you just push by yourself, you're obviously going to get melted and punished for pushing by yourself. So again, the idea for this ship is more of an amazing pusher when supported by the team, rather than being a backline sniper where you don't really care about the team, you're just in it for yourself to get some sniping shots in. So that's my overall just general changes I would make to this new American battleship line. I'm not saying that this is the ultimate iteration of these ships and this is what they should be. I'm just throwing my idea out there, and again, it's not really in detail, I know that, just kind of a gist of what I would like these ships to become rather than what they are now. Someone in the comments down below, do you agree with me? Do you disagree? What would you change about these ships? And I was trying just to do this to where it would be simple enough to where Wargaming could just tweak the stats rather than throw away the whole line and bring in a whole new line. I mean, I for one would have much rather have seen a secondary line, kind of like a tech line premium line, if you get what I'm saying, because we have the Massachusetts at tier 8, the Georgia at tier 9, and the Ohio at tier 10, which are all secondary brawlers. It would nice to maybe have seen a tech line version of that with unique historical ships with that type of setup rather than what we're getting. But again, just all my opinion. Just want to throw it by you guys and see how you guys liked it. Anyway, guys, if you enjoyed the video, make sure to drop a like, leave a comment, and subscribe to the channel. We are on our way to 20,000 subs. We just passed 17k last night, actually. I cannot thank you guys enough for that. Hope you guys enjoyed the video. Hope you guys are having an awesome Wednesday. And I hope to see you guys in the next one.